Funding for Governor's Perspectives with Kent Manahan is made possible by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, committed to helping Americans lead healthier lives and get the care they need. Additional funding provided by Seton Hall University, Seton Hall School of Law, and by Connell Foley, LLP.
Former Governor and Senate President Dick Codey passed away after a brief illness earlier this month at the age of 79. For 50 years in Trenton, he was known for hard work and a keen sense of humor. Legislative colleagues described him as a lawmaker who could work with both Democrats and Republicans. In 2024, I interviewed Governor Codey on Governor's Perspectives about all those years of working for the people. In this program, we bring you an encore presentation. Former Governor Dick Codey, New Jersey's 53rd governor, started his political career in the Democratic Party in 1973 at the age of 26. That's when he was elected to the State Assembly, representing the people in Essex County's 27th district. Codey didn't leave the Assembly until 1982, when he was elected to the State Senate. From there, 22 years later, he became governor, a post he never ran for or was elected to. At the time, Codey was president of the Senate. New Jersey didn't have a lieutenant governor. And when then-Governor Jim McGreevey unexpectedly resigned due to a scandal in his administration, Senator Codey was in line to take over. For the next nearly year and a half as governor, he championed many issues, including New Jersey's Smoke-Free Air Act, stricter gun control, healthy food for kids in school, and pay-to-pay laws. Mental health reform was always a top priority for him and his wife, Mary Jo, dating back to Codey's days in the legislature.
We started the Codey Fund for Mental Health to get people to stand up, speak out, and get help.
He went undercover in the state psychiatric hospitals and really tried to see what kind of treatment people were getting when nobody was looking.
You could argue that Dick Codey, for a 14-month stretch, was the most powerful governor we ever had, because he could go down the hallway in the Senate, traffic the legislation and appointments, and then go down to the executive wing of the State House and make those appointments and sign that legislation.
Last August, Codey announced that after 50 years of public service, he would not run for re-election. He said it was time for a younger generation. 5 decades of public service makes him the longest-serving legislator in state history. In a statement, Governor Murphy called Dick Codey the rarest of politicians, a gentleman guided by compassion who embraced bipartisanship. In a tribute from the other side of the aisle, Republican leader Senator Anthony Bucco, a friend, put it this way: Senator Codey has had the courage over the course of his career to step out of his comfort zone.
I assumed this office at a time of political upheaval for the people of New Jersey. Our faith in government had been shaken. But this moment in history has given us an opportunity to chart a new course.
And former Governor and Senate President Dick Codey is here to talk about his years of serving the people of New Jersey. Welcome back to the program, Governor.
Great to be here.
Good to have you here.
My pleasure.
Governor, you had quite a send-off in Trenton on your last day in office from Democrats and Republicans. It must have been very gratifying.
I never cared about whether a legislator was a Democrat or Republican. Gratifying but not surprising. I always worked with the Republicans and made sure that they were included. They might have been a minority of the legislature, but in my mind, they were just like any other state senator. And that's the way it should be. Anything I could do for them to help them, if they oppose me on a certain issue, so what? Be as long as it's never personal, I could care less.
We don't see much of that, though, today, particularly on the national level.
Well, on the national level, you got people that are just different. But I always got along with all the Republicans in office, and I would keep in touch with them. And that's a very good thing.
In what sense?
On Sunday nights, I would call legislators when I was governor. Half Republicans, half Democrats. Is there anything I can do for you? Oh, well, Governor, I got a bill that just passed. I said, tell you what, if I like it, I'll sign it, and I'll sign it in your district. So there's a person who's going to be with me whenever he can and appreciates that. It didn't take too much. It's just having the sense of we're all in this together, whether we're Republicans or Democrats.
So you're showing that you understand their concerns and they listen to you, of course, as a leader, or as a governor, as a Senate president, and you showed you cared about their issues.
Just because they're the other party, they're not worth any less than I or my fellow Democrats.
You can have disagreements, but agree to disagree.
Right. But at the end of the day, I'm going to help them just as much as my fellow Democrats.
Well, let's go back in time and ask you, how in the first place did you get involved in politics? And at such a young age, you were elected to the Assembly.
Very easy. So I was born and raised up top, third floor of a funeral home. Elevator only went to the second floor. And when I turned 13, he says to me, okay, you got to go out and work the parking lot. The parking lot had 32 spots. So my dad said to me, listen, if all 32 spots are filled, it's the rule of the PP. So what do you mean? If 32 slots are filled and a priest or a politician comes in, find the spot. Spheres of influence, right? Very easy.
A lesson in life.
Yes, and okay, a politician or a priest is a big deal.
So that led you into politics,
I think
that
so.
philosophy, and so how did it make the
but
connection
my father
to run?
also every once in a while would have me sit down next to him, and he'd read the Daily News editorial and ask me to explain it to him.
So you had an understanding of politics, you think, from an early
and
age, and an
life.
interest.
Yeah, absolutely, because when I was a kid in the neighborhood, all the politicians paid you to take down their opponent's signs. It's a good way to make money.
Not knock on doors, but take down their
Take down their
signs.
signs.
So how did you get into the Assembly? Who approached you to run, and how did that work out for you?
Nobody approaches you. So at an early age, the chairman was Harry Lerner. My father knew him. He lived not too far from us in East Orange. And there was redistricting, and there was an opening. So fortunately, back in the 70s, I got a slot, and I've never looked back from there. Had a lot of ups and downs, ran off the line quite a few times.
And got elected anyway,
Always won.
even in
Always
Essex
won.
County.
Yeah, and people say, oh, you can't win against the party. I said, no, we're going to make the party the bad guys. That's all. It's simple as that. And we did, and we won. And Sheila Oliver started with us off the line. You know, so a lot of people, state chairman ran with me and became an assemblyman. So a lot of people have done the same thing and been successful.
So you get into the Assembly, you are elected years later into the state Senate, and then you gain seniority, become Senate president. Where along the line, or did along the line, you think about running for governor?
Well, before that, one of the big things I did was I was young in the Assembly, and they passed the right to have a casino. And the Speaker at the time, Bill Hamilton, said, hey, kid, you write the laws for the casinos. You're single, you can travel all over the world. And I did, and wrote all the laws, learned a lot about gambling, and it was a great time in my lifetime. And back then, I was known as the casino guy.
In the legislature?
Yeah, and then I move on to the Senate and worked my way up.
So you worked your way up to become Senate president, but that took years in the making, didn't it?
Yeah.
So how did that happen for you, to get to a leadership role from what I think you've even described it as for years a backbench role?
Yeah, I just made friends. Came from a county that was strongly Democratic, and as long as the Senate was Democratic, it was going to be a Democrat. And then John Lynch had it for a while and left politics and some others, and the opening was mine, and I took it and ran with it and never looked back.
So did you think about, at any point, running for governor?
Of course. Did people ask me about it? But I never got like, oh, I gotta run for governor. No, not at all. I was happy being the president of the Senate. And then one day during the summer of whatever that year was.
The phone rings and news. How did that happen?
Here's how it happened. So I was at the racetrack. I came home, and it's late, and my wife says, "Hey, Brian Thompson from NBC called. Said you got to call him right away." I said, "Nah, I'll call him later." And my wife was having minor surgery the next morning. I said, "I'll call me after, we go into surgery." So she goes into surgery, and I said, I'm just running down to my office. I walk into the office, and they said, "Oh, good morning, Governor." What are you talking about? You don't know? I said, "Know what?" "Well, he's going to resign this afternoon. You're going to become the governor."
So it was that quick, just a morning into an afternoon
Yeah,
announcement.
can you imagine when she came out of the anesthesia when I told her she's the first lady? She
Your
put me
wife.
back under. That's a true story.
So you show up for the news conference and you're sworn in.
No. McGreevy said to me, "Nick, I got to get a paycheck. Hold it off a couple of months," which is fine. No problem with me. The interesting question I got at the news conference was, "Governor, under the law, you can take the salary of the president of the Senate or the governor. Which one are you going to take?" I said, "I don't know where you came from, but I'm taking the highest."
I have a family, a young family to support, and a wife who's going to become first lady, unbeknownst to her.
Yeah, well, no, she knew it then.
Until a few hours ago.
Yeah.
So, Governor, you become governor, but you're also the Senate president. How do you balance those two roles? One
Easy.
in the legislature and one in the governor's
Every
office.
governor would like to control the legislative calendar and what bills get voted on, which don't. So it made it a lot easier.
For you, with all of your
for me,
experience.
but I mean, but even the people in the legislature didn't resent it. And I always kept in touch with the Republicans, always, about everything. Why do I care? I don't care about whether somebody's a Republican or a Democrat. Some of my biggest supporters were Republicans. Donnie D and all the others. It was just hey, have them involved, have them engaged. What do
We're
you
talking
need?
about former Governor
Yes.
Don DeFrancesco, who
Absolutely.
was also the Senate president, who had served as governor before you when Christy Whitman
Yes.
went to Washington. But backing up, Governor, when you were sworn in, when you became governor, there was a lot of mistrust from the public. There was a scandal. Governor McGreevy had resigned in disgrace. There was a scandal in his administration. You had the responsibility of now restoring that public trust in your leadership role in both the legislature and in the governor's
So
office.
one of the things I did was I got some street smarts, I think at least. So when we passed our budget, and every budget got bad ratings from Wall Street, so I called in Treasurer John McCormick. It's John. We got to have a really good budget. So he gave me a really good budget, and I said, "Here's what I'm going to do. You give me the name and phone number of everybody who rates our bonds based on this budget. I'm going to call them up." He said, "Well, that's my job." I said, "No, this year it's my job, because I bet you some of them live in New Jersey." And I did, and we got the best bond rating we had in years. Just some street smarts, that's all.
I have to ask you about your title. You were called acting governor at the time, but I don't think you liked that.
No,
That
so
changed
we changed the law.
just before you left
Left
office.
Yeah, in
was it-
fact, I scraped it off the door.
So you are now known and will be known always as Governor Codey.
Absolutely.
Governor, you had a strong interest in mental health issues during your time in both the legislature and continued in the governor's office. You went undercover to some of the state psychiatric hospitals. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the one place I went to, Marlboro State Hospital, I went undercover as an aide, a health aide. I mean, it was horrendous. I got there at midnight, a midnight shift. The two nurses were just sleeping. When the patients got up in the morning, so if you're male, you work with the males. They went to the basement, and it was closed down there, and they would throw the clothes at the men, and they had to wear clothes that didn't match or didn't fit or anything else.
So there were abuses
It
that
was
you
just-
had heard about and you wanted to see
Well,
firsthand.
I got the job, and I got the job So I got the ID of a convicted rapist and Social Security number.
To go undercover.
To go undercover. So, hey, oh, gee, we looked this guy up, but we can't hire him. No, they never looked me up. So I worked a midnight shift, and after a week, I exposed what was going on, and as a result, they eventually closed the hospital down. I mean, it was horrible. The only thing that was going on was some of the employees that were dealing drugs out of the back door who worked a midnight shift.
So when you became governor, you continued, of course, your advocacy for mental health issues, and you established a task force, and if I recall, with dedicated funding.
Yes.
You and your wife, during your time in office, shared a very personal story about your family. What kind of impact did that have, do you think, Governor?
Oh, tremendous. I mean, my wife, who's the nicest human being I've ever met to this day, without question, loves kids, worked as a teenager in a daycare center to get money to go to college. And after the birth of our first son, Kevin, came down with postpartum depression very bad. And I can remember the night that I took her to Carrier Clinic, and I've got tears in my eyes, and she's as lucid as possibly can be, telling me I'm never going to get well, just find somebody who'll make a good mother to our son.
She was suffering from postpartum depression, and that
Very
was
much
very
so.
important to her during her time as First Lady and
Absolutely.
your time as governor.
Yes, and she got very friendly with Brooke Shields, went and testified before the U.S. Congress on the issue of postpartum depression, and got a federal law passed regarding postpartum depression.
And that left a big impact on the people of New Jersey because the governor and his wife spoke out about it, and certainly that carried a lot of influence.
Yeah, and there was also the incident with the shock jock who made some disparaging remarks about my wife. Somebody's got to tell that woman to.
A radio personality that
You call him personality.
made a comment about
Comment about
the First
she
Lady.
should go in the kitchen and bake cookies.
And that set you off.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna kick his ass. I
But
didn't
you were
care.
governor, and
Yes, but I was governor, but I was a husband first. And wherever I went for the next couple of weeks, people applauded me. In fact, the next day I got a call from Mayor Bloomberg from Germany. He was in Germany at the time, congratulating me on the way I handled it.
you had a long list of accomplishments during a very short time in office, 14 months or so to be exact, Governor. So you passed the Clean Air Act, smoking in public places.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I saw too many people from my neighborhood who died from smoking and the harm it did. And smoking is so far down. It's great. I mean, you know, in the poor neighborhoods where I lived in Orange, it was an accepted thing that you smoked. And nowadays, you don't see it at all.
Well, you worked on gun control, pay to play,
Absolutely.
junk food in school for kids. You helped to ban that effort.
Yeah.
So as a governor and as the Senate president, were you up and down the hall making these things happen? From the legislature back to the
No,
to
but
sign the bill?
as long as I was interacting with the legislators of both parties.
It made it easier for you, do you think?
God, did it make it easier. You know, I'd say to the Republicans, what do you need in a budget? And I don't care that you're not going to vote for the budget. I'm fine with that, as long as it passes.
In the end.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
That's the street smarts in me.
So, Governor, you've always been known as, you know, the everyday kind of relatable person, whether you were governor, senator, assemblyman, coming up through the ranks. You had a very high approval rating during your short time in office. I think it was up in the 70%,
70 to 16%.
something like that. So why didn't you run for governor?
Guy had a boatload of money, okay, and was able.
Who was that person? Would you tell us?
Corzine. Who, by the way,
Corzine.
I do not dislike at all. In fact, I think he's a nice guy.
I just wanted to hear that from you, Governor.
No, that's fine. It is what, if I was with him just the other day, and I don't have any animosity towards him, and he was able to go to the county chairman like Joe Ferriero and say, here's whatever amount of money you want if you back me. But so I didn't want to have to face, millions and millions of dollars of negative publicity. I had a great run. I was happy with it. I was still going to be president of the Senate.
Go back to your job.
Yeah, so I wasn't angry, and I don't regret it today. But I said, I think the guy's a nice guy. I didn't work for him as governor. He was a different kind of personality, but not a bad human being.
It's interesting that in your time in office with so many accomplishments that maybe you chose to step away and go back to your job as Senate president. So you never ran for office. So let me ask you about your thoughts about the party line, because that is important in New Jersey. Is it something that should be changed? Does it interfere with too many other candidates who might want to run for office? The fact that you get the backing of the county chair, you usually get the party line, and that means the first line on the ballot, and that's generally the person who wins in a primary.
Yeah, but as I told you, I didn't have a lot of money, and we always beat the county line. If you're smart enough to make the county line, the bad people line, okay? So I think in time, it'll probably be done away with.
Should it be done away with, in your mind?
I think it should be a fairer system.
Would it be hard to do, though, in New Jersey, because it's been around for so long?
It's established on both sides of the aisle.
What would it take?
A governor with a lot of guts.
And what next? Convincing
The legislature.
to make that change?
Yes.
And so in your opinion, that is something that should be done. You might have run on not being on the party line and winning, but
Yes.
but for the most part, when you get the party line, you win.
Correct.
In a primary.
Absolutely.
That's
But
the way
that doesn't mean
works.
that they pick bad candidates, though.
You were always known for your sense of humor. You even wrote a book. Me, Governor? What was your best memory serving as governor of New Jersey?
The best thing I felt was how my wife established herself as a speaker and as a person who was going to try to help women. And it became not unusual for me to come home and find some woman in my living room with my wife crying because she had postpartum depression and was asking my wife to help her.
That's quite an amazing story.
Oh,
when
that
you
happened.
think about
That
it.
would happen all the
She was
time.
the first lady, and she
Absolutely.
would talk one-on-one with people who had similar issues
Absolutely.
and encourage them.
And gets recognized and spoken about on that issue a lot. Not as much as she used to, no, but
What does public service mean, and what does it mean to
that's it.
you?
Public service is a great honor. You have the ability to change things for the better. I can remember I was governor, and there was two sisters who both needed kidneys, and the insurance company was denying it. First thing I did is I got on the phone and in my roughest, toughest language to this insurance company that I won't mention, give these women these transplants. Let her boom for her sister. It was okay? And like a year later, they called me. And they're both doing great. And that you can't buy that kind of happiness.
So it's helping people,
Yeah.
gaining trust,
Right, but-
showing leadership.
So I did a $250 million bond issue for group homes for autistic children. So it wasn't unusual for me to be out, and a couple would come up and thank me and have their autistic child, and I would always hug the child because I wanted them to know I may be a governor, but I care about your son or your daughter.
What would you say to young people today, Governor Codey, to encourage them to seek out public service and understand how rewarding it is, as you're saying it has been to you and to your family?
Oh, it's the only way to really make a substantive change for the better for people. And isn't life about being a nice person and helping your fellow citizen? It sure will be.
How would you like Dick Codey to be remembered as the governor of New Jersey?
As somebody who always tried to do the right thing and always put people ahead of himself and wanted to put New Jersey #1, as it should be.
What's next for Dick Codey? What's next in your life, Governor?
Well, I'm not going to be running for public office anymore. You know, I have insurance business, funeral homes, and coaching basketball, so I'm going to be busy, and I'll still follow politics for sure.
Well, congratulations to you in service of 50 years for the people of New Jersey. Governor, and thank you for sharing your stories and your memories with us on this program. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I did not run for it, and I did not seek it, but I will not run from the responsibility, and I will not shy from the challenges. That's not how I was raised. Whether I am president of the Senate, acting governor, a candidate for governor, a husband, or just dad, I am always going to be the same person.
Funding for Governor's Perspectives with Kent Manahan has been provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, committed to helping Americans lead healthier lives and get the care they need. Seton Hall University, Seton Hall School of Law, and by Connell Foley, LLP.